Russian forces and Wagner's group have for almost a year now tried, and so far failed to take the town of Bakhmut in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine. But they managed to advance north and south of Bakhmut while capturing the eastern outskirts and parts of the city center. If the Ukrainians remove the Bakhmut and manage to get out of the city, their retreat could be considered one of the more successful combat retreats in modern military history. Overall, tens of thousands of Russians potentially died in the long battle of Bakhmut. For Ukraine, the city has become an opportunity to erode Russia's combat power and create favorable conditions for the long-planned Ukrainian counteroffensive. A dramatic video footage shows Ukrainian armed forces in occupied Klishchiivka destroying the Russian invaders' artillery installations and 120mm 2S9 Nona-S self-propelled mortar. This was reported live by the Telegram channel Operational ZSU, which published a corresponding video. Mrs. Explosion was so strong that it was certain that her own ammunition immediately exploded upon impact and completely destroyed the car. It was clear that she was hit by a high-precision ammunition. Ukrainian forces have also reported today with reference to the general staff about the destruction of a Russian Su-25 fighter jet in the Maryinka region. Later, the command of the airborne forces established that the soldiers of the air defense units of one of the airborne units distinguished themselves. A video has been released showing the plane taking off, exploding on the ground, and the pilot landing with a parachute. At the same time, it is unclear what exactly hit the plane. Ukrainian military expert Oleksandr Musienko said Russian troops were exhausted and unable to maintain the same pace of attack as they launched in February. It is now clear that the Russian army's ability to attack has stalled, and for all their audacity to take over Bakhmut, it's not right, he said in the video comments. Meanwhile, Russian military forces and Wagner mercenaries may have joined forces with airborne troops, the UK Defense Ministry said in a post on Twitter, adding that the main supply route for Ukraine west of Bakhmut is likely to be seriously threatened. They may have reached the city center, taking control of the west bank of the Bakhmutka River, which flows through the settlement, the ministry said. On Thursday, the Washington-based think tank Institute for the Study of War said Russian troops had resumed ground attacks on the city, making small advances in the center of Bakhmut. On Friday, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces said Russia continues to focus on offensive operations in Bakhmut. The battle for Bakhmut continues, Andriy Yermak, head of the office of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, said Thursday. They roamed the streets. The enemy's attempt to besiege the city failed, he wrote, repeating Zelensky's earlier label of the city as a fortress. But earlier this week, Zelensky suggested he could order a troop withdrawal if Ukrainian troops were surrounded by Moscow fighters. Russian conventional troops have been fighting alongside mercenaries in Bakhmut, with the paramilitary Wagner group taking a key role in operations in and around the town. But the rift between the Russian military and mercenaries has been well documented and a matter of public concern. The head of the Wagner group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, previously accused the Russian Ministry of Defense and military commanders of treason and trying to destroy the mercenary group. On Tuesday, Britain's defense ministry said Russia was possibly seeking to sponsor and develop an alternative mercenary group to replace the Wagner group's combat role in Ukraine. However, no other Russian private military company is currently approaching Wagner's size or combat power, the ministry added. Recently, missile and artillery units of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the Kherson direction destroyed a 152mm self-propelled artillery installation, Nona-S, a BM-21 Grad Salva rocket system, and 2 Russian invaders' vehicles. In addition, 13 attackers, 3 unmanned aerial vehicles of the Mavic 3 type were neutralized, and the colonial observation post on one of the islands at the mouth of the Dnieper, south of Kherson, was destroyed. Operational Command South reported on this in the summary of recent days, which was published on the official page on the social network Facebook. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on April 8 that Russia had lost 177,680 troops in Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes the 570 casualties suffered by Russian forces over the last 24 hours. Russian strike forces have continued to carry out dozens of military offensives in eastern Ukraine, with Kyiv's military reporting that it had repelled 60 attacks over the past day. In a statement issued early April 8, the General Staff of Ukraine said the Russian military continues to target the country's industrial east with a focus on the cities of Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Maryinka in the Donetsk region. Over the last 24 hours, the enemy launched 2 missiles and 35 airstrikes, carried out more than 40 attacks from rocket launch systems, the military said. The Ukrainian military also said Russian occupation forces in the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions were preparing for what Kyiv described as an evacuation of civilians to Russian-occupied Crimea. In the city of Feodosia, eastern Crimea, an explosion was reported on April 8. A leader Russia has stationed on the peninsula said it was a Ukrainian missile and had been shot down by Russian troops. Russian forces have used ground and air missiles, rocket launchers, and armed drones to bombard Ukrainian provinces illegally annexed by Moscow, but not fully controlled, causing casualties, damage to buildings, and power outages. Ukraine's military said Russian troops carried out 18 airstrikes, 5 missile strikes, and 53 attacks from multiple rocket launchers between Thursday and Friday morning. Most of Friday's battle reports concerned 4 Ukrainian provinces that Russia annexed in September: Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. On the other hand, Ukraine is expected to launch a counteroffensive soon to reclaim land in the south and east of the country from Russian troops. The Ukrainian Air Force also carried out 9 raids on the Russian temporary base. The country's rocket and artillery forces attacked 1 control post and 2 Russian makeshift bases and destroyed an ammunition depot.